Hi, this is Tanya Becker, and I'm your host for today's episode of PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating. If you haven't already, please subscribe to PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. I'm really excited to be joined by Cody Ryan Greaney. Cody is a man of many talents. He's a professional angler, co-host of the Outdoor Zone, the #1 outdoor radio show in Texas. Most importantly, he's a devoted husband and father.
Thanks for being here, Cody.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me and putting up with, having a fisherman try and push all these buttons on this computer. And
Well,
doesn't always compute the same as my, boat does.
well, we're going to get into this, but you've spent a lot of time in a radio studio, so this isn't so foreign to you, I know.
Well, you learn a couple buttons to push, and I just push the same buttons for 20 years and you hope it works. But that's about it.
I hear you.
So
I know you're really and truly a man of many talents, but I'd like to start with your fishing career. What has your tournament fishing journey been like over the years?
it's interesting. So I started fishing, obviously, when I was young. My father and mother were divorced when I was young, and as a single father, my dad was looking for something that a boy and a son could do on the weekends, and so he bought a bass boat. He went to a boat show and bought a bass boat, and we kind of learned how to fish together in a lot of ways. And so from that, we would fish a couple local tournaments here and there. We never did any good, or, we always had the same 3 baits that we always threw, whatever somebody told us about or whatever, and never really did any good. But I love to fish, and eventually over the years, we did get a little bit better as far as fishing goes. And I got invited to fish a tournament right after I graduated college. Now, I'd fished a couple tournaments, like I said before, but never done any good. And I got invited to fish with a kind of a friend of a friend, needing just somebody to stand in the back of his boat and throw, and cast. And I fit that. I guess I fit that mold and was able to go. And so I jumped in the boat right after I finished college, and we did decent in that tournament. And that's what kind of sparked the whole tournament idea. And, growing up watching fishing shows, whether it be every, Saturday and Sunday morning, watching all the fishing shows, I never knew that somebody could make a living trying to catch a bass. And so I kind of started putting those things together, like, wow, I really got to find a job now that I've graduated college. I'm supposed to go find this 9-to-5 job, but was struggling with the mindset of having to do that, every week, same thing, week after week from 9 to 5, and not being able to fish, not being able to hunt, and all the things I love to do. So that's kind of what sparked the idea, and just kind of been going from there, fishing locally for years and years, and having a little bit of success here and there, a little bit of success throughout kind of the whole journey. But definitely a learning experience. I laugh, at times when I look back on, wow, how did we get second in that tournament? I didn't know anything, and we did well, and things like that. When I look on today versus what I do today, and what I perceive, the knowledge that I have versus what I did 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. So it's just been a journey.
It's an interesting world that we live in. I mean, think about how much of human history we were fishing to survive, and now somebody is paying you to catch a fish and throw it back.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know. It's a weird deal, but you think about you've got guys with sticks that hit a ball
True.
And get paid to do
Same
that.
thing.
You got guys with a leather ball. They throw it, or hand it to some other guy, and he runs
Right.
until somebody else hits him. Things like that. So we're kind of a weird
Species, I think.
species anyway.
Yeah. So was college fishing, college in high school fishing has really just skyrocketed in recent years. Did that really exist when you were that age or not so much?
No, it kind of came right after I graduated college. I kind of started hearing about the idea of college fishing, and holy cow, it blew up. And I was
crazy.
I literally thought about if I need to go back and get a master's degree or something just so I can get back in college and fish those tournaments.
Yeah.
If the college is going to pay for me to go fishing, well, I need to go back to college apparently, because this whole working thing and paying bills is not very fun.
No, I hear you.
But it, it definitely was before my time. But it has, man, it's exciting to see, it progressing and taking hold, because it makes what we, us old guys now. I'm, pushing 40 and considered one of the old guys now, which is kind of funny. 20 years ago in bass fishing, I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But now that we have all the college and high school teams and things like that, it's a new, younger generation, and holy cow, they've got more knowledge. I spent the last 20 years trying to gain the knowledge I have by some of these sophomores in college. It's incredible.
It's great for the sport, though. I think. I mean, it's exciting to see all these young people. Participate in that, youth side of the sport growing. I mean, it's just going to be great for the future.
Well, and it makes like again, a guy like me that's been doing it 20 years, not the old fuddy-duddy fishing guy, but it's cool now. Yeah. It's cool to bass fish.
Yeah.
Like that's a cool thing. 20 years ago, I don't think it was as cool.
No.
Now it is.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think it was something. I don't think so either. I grew up fishing with my dad. I mean, like you did. I mean, and I don't think it was cool. I just think it was what people did. I mean, it's. Right. I don't know. It was
right.
So yeah, I believe you're going to fish with the Major League Fishing this upcoming season. What circuit are you going to participate in?
Yeah, so I'm going to be fishing the invitationals, Major League Fishing invitationals for sure. I may jump in some Toyotas and things like that as the year progresses. The last couple of years, I fished National Professional Fishing League, which is a new league. The first 2 years, I fished with them and had a great time. And I still may fish with them. I got a couple days to sign up before I make that leap. That's the other thing about our sport. We're the only sport that has to pay to play.
Yeah.
Where we don't get paid to play, like a lot of the other sports. But, and so it's a big jump, it's a big risk. I mean, it's $30,000-$40,000 in entry fees per trail. And then you got traveling expenses, on top of that. So, still trying to decide if we're going to jump in that. But yes, Major League Fishing Invitationals for sure this year. And, which used to be the FLW Tour. It's been bought out by Major League Fishing and then has changed titles a few times. And, there's a bunch of, changes and things like that. But leading back to, I was kind of thinking about it the other day, leading back to when I first started tournament fishing, I went to an FLW weigh-in back when they used to have all the weigh-ins the last couple days, like inside an arena, and they had all these wrapped boats, and this was right when wrapped boats started becoming a thing, and they had Walmart boats and Castrol boats and all these major brands, peanut M&Ms, on the side of a boat, and I thought, holy cow, I want to do that. That's what I want to do, and that was the first time I'd ever kind of put the pieces together that this could actually be a career and a job. And so it's kind of neat after all these years. I kind of took advantage of the invite to fish the invitationals. It's not necessarily the FLW Tour like it once was, but it's what used to be, I guess, the FLW Tour. And so it's kind of a nostalgic thing for me. I just wanted to jump in when I could and at least check that off the box. I said it 20 years ago that I wanted to fish the FLW Tour. Well, I'm fishing as close as I can get to it, being that it's not exactly around same owner, same name or anything. So that's kind of neat.
So is that why you decided to fish MLF this year, or is,
Yeah, and really, that was a big player in it.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's just kind of a personal thing. It was. I mean, really, that was a big part of it. As silly as that may sound, when you're looking at a kind of a business decision of where to go and what leagues to fish, and should I fish all 9 Bassmaster Opens and try and qualify for the elites or whatever. And when that invite came in the email, I thought, oh, well, this might be the chance to check that box.
Yeah.
You always say something, or I love when I think about something or have a dream, and then years later get to check that box. I mean, it's not often you get to do that. So that's the box I'm trying to check this year, and we'll see how it goes. I'm excited, though. I am. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and from what I understand, the MLF has changed its tournament formats a little bit this season. What are those changes, and what are your thoughts about them?
Yeah, and I need to brush up on what a lot of them are. I know that the Bass Pro Trail, or whatever it's called, the Bass Pro, the one up, the 80 guys or whatever.
Yeah.
Those guys are fishing for just their best 5 this year.
Yes.
Which is a big change.
Yeah.
And that used to be every fish counts.
Right.
As far as the invitationals go, I know that I can't remember. There's a bunch of little changes,
Okay.
that really didn't affect the way I operate or the way I fish. So it hadn't been a big factor, I guess, in any decisions or ideas that I've had. I remember, I've read over them, and we'll brush up on them again, but it didn't affect me directly, just knowing how I fish and the style. So it didn't really bother me either way.
That's interesting. I didn't know whether, I knew the Pro Series changed to this best 5 format, similar to Bassmaster. But it sounds like the invitationals, that might not be, it may not, the invitationals, that's not the case. It doesn't sound like.
Well, the invitationals are 5 fish.
Oh, they are. Okay.
And so I think, they're kind of just bringing it back to how bass fishing started, tournament bass fishing started. Well, I guess it used to be like maybe best 15 back in the day when it first started, best 10 or something. But, bringing it back to the best 5, I think it's good. I've heard some excellent opinions on both sides of it, and really, I probably am in the middle when it really comes down to it. I think I'm really if I were to qualify for the top 80, Bass Pro Tour and this year and fish those, I think I would do better if it was every fish counts, because I'm really good at catching a lot of small fish and smaller fish,
Yeah.
And so that part maybe is kind of a bummer if I were to qualify this year. But nonetheless, it's, used to fishing for 5 fish, and I think, I've kind of, my fishing in the last couple of years has changed a lot as far as, I think maybe just maturity wise, and kind of coming into my own and feeling comfortable with how I fish and what I do. And, I haven't been in front of the camera a ton because, I'll slide in the last day to, a good finish or something. And so not going into the final day with a camera, but kind of sliding in there that final day to have a good finish and things like that. So, so it hadn't really, I guess been televised or whatever, but I think I'm fishing well in general, and I'm really excited, and confidence is a big key. And I think I'm going into this year with, there's kind of a humble confidence that I'm been trying to navigate for years. Either I'm too confident and not good enough, or I'm, good enough but not confident enough. Right. And so there's kind of a humble confidence there I think you need to have in bass fishing. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I've, kind of felt that I'm getting better at, or with, or, whatever that looks like. So,
yeah. I guess that's life in general, right? You have to be confident in yourself, but overconfidence is sort of a problem.
It's annoying.
It's annoying. Yeah.
And,
yeah, that's interesting. That's got to be a big change if I'm sure the the plan is to, do better throughout the tournament rather than just solely, slipping in on the last day and getting used to the cameras and that whole, it's got to be, it sounds a little nerve wracking just thinking about it if I put myself in your shoes.
Yeah, there's definitely some nerves that, come into play, but I think that's what drives us as tournament anglers.
Yeah.
I was called by a buddy the other day. I've talked about maybe not fishing for a year or, fishing local stuff for a year and taking a break and kind of seeing where the dust settles with all the leagues and how everything's going to play out. And he looked at me and he said, "You're a lifer, bro. You're a lifer. You just fish whatever you can fish, and that's just what you do."
Yeah.
And, my wife says the same thing. I said, there's been times in the last, 10, 20 years that I've said, I'm just not going to bass fish. I don't need a bass boat. I'm just going to sell the boat. And she goes, no, what would you do?
And you will drive me crazy if you don't do it.
What are you going to think about? What are you going to talk about? You just going to sit around here all day?
Yeah. She doesn't want that. No, it's not good for you, right? I mean, it's,
No.
No,
Yeah.
it's interesting just to circle back to this best five issue. I mean, I certainly understand your position, particularly if you're good at just catching a lot of fish. But, with the increased popularity of the sport, I mean, these lakes are getting pressured. So it's, I think it's a good, a good move probably by the tournament. Makes sense to me at least.
Yeah, I mean, it'll change fishing styles a little bit. I think people will be able to relate a little better that fish. The other side of the coin, the interesting kind of argument, which is kind of, at first I was like, about time they switched to, best five fish. That's what we all know. That's what everybody loves. But their mission overall, Major League Fishing's mission is to bring in new eyes to the sport of fishing. And I've talked to, several people that maybe don't understand tournament fishing as well or whatever, and they like the every fish counts because they just like seeing fish caught. Yeah. Because,
That's true.
It's just like if it's, a football game and everybody, you play till, somebody scores 21 points. Well, they may do that in the first quarter and then the game's over and that's kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And instead of, being the best scoring over the course of the time, I don't know. There's a bunch of arguments to it, and I've heard people in the that aren't in the tournament industry kind of lean towards every fish counts because they can relate to it more. It's not just people trying to fish for bigger fish or throwing bigger baits or stuff.
Are there any particular strategy changes that you're going to work on this season, or you're going to try to test out a bit, or?
No, for me, I am. Are we still good?
Yeah, we're good
on our side.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I'm not changing really anything that I do. I think, like I said, I've kind of, I don't know where it came from. Maybe lots of prayers, but I've kind of just gained some confidence, really. And I don't, like I said, I don't exactly know where it came from. I had a decent year last year. It wasn't obviously anything to get the cover of any magazines or anything about, but it was a decent year, but I learned a lot. I feel like just talking with some of the guys that I kind of used as mentors over the last year or so. And so confidence, I think, is a huge player and is something that I've lacked in my fishing for a long time that I'm excited to kind of have back, and feel confident going into the year with a little bit of confidence, and just knowing that I'll play my game, the best game I can play, and we'll see what happens.
That's great. Good.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about your radio show, The Outdoor Zone. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah. So my father started an outdoor show probably 25 years ago, and he did it by himself for a year. in a local radio station from 5 to 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings. Nobody even knew, that it was happening. But I started going into the show with him, and when I was a senior in high school, and I started going every Saturday and doing the show with him. And then there'd be times where he'd be out and I would do the show. I'd bring in a buddy from high school and do a show. And I look back on that and I'm like, holy cow, I never want to hear that show. I hope it's been lost
to history.
In the archives. Yes, please. But, and then I went off to college, and in college I did the news and weather for a local radio station. So I kind of continued into the radio world. And at some point in there, my dad kind of lost interest in what he was doing and was traveling a bunch, and stopped doing the radio show for a couple of years there. And after I graduated, we kind of, I guess, got a call from somebody and said, do y'all want to do a show? And we said, okay, yeah, it's been a few years. We'll do a show. And so we kind of revamped it, and it's been going over a decade now, I guess, now with the new show that we've been doing. And we've, changed times here and there and changed locations. Just a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I guess we got our new, I guess we have a new character. I call him a character. He's a buddy that we brought into the show.
Oh.
But he is kind of got us all lined up on all of the podcast platforms. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing that we're on, Spotify and Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio and all the different podcast platforms. And it's just amazing how large and expanding that has kind of gotten as far as our listenership, and who we get comments from or listeners from, all over the country. Yeah. For the show now, when it used to just be kind of a more local-based Central Texas show, and but now that it's podcast everywhere the last few years, it's really kind of taken off. But it's weird for me to be on this side of it, right? I'm supposed to I'm still feeling all of the talking time, which is what I'm used to doing. But, and I apologize, it's just habit. No. But it's also weird for me to have like a camera.
Yeah.
So we do all our shows since 2020 when the world shut down. We've been doing all of our shows by Zoom. Mm-hmm. And so we can see each other, but it doesn't matter, how we're dressed or, or what is behind us. I never even pay attention to what's behind me, when we're doing the show. And but it's been kind of nice to, have a in-home studio and be able to do it from home. Yeah. It's really neat. I kind of had the realization, as we're getting older, my dad's getting older, that, and as life happens around us and goes so fast around us, that at least 2 hours a week, my dad and I get to sit on a Zoom call, even though he's only 30 minutes down the road. We get to sit on a Zoom call and, talk about hunting and fishing for a couple hours. Yeah. And so it's pretty neat. And I we've often talked, we're going to do this forever. How long are we going to do this? And I just keep saying, as long as you want to do it, Pops, I'm going to get up and talk to you for a couple hours a week.
I think it's great. You just keep doing it until it's not fun anymore, right? I mean, it's...
That's right.
It's, yeah. I have a feeling, talking about hunting and fishing, how, I don't know when that becomes not fun, but, maybe it will at some point. I don't know.
Well, there is the father-son dynamic too, where, I irritate him and he irritates me, and we try and keep it off air, but sometimes it gets on air, and, it's kind of funny how we've worked through that over the years. Certain things like, okay, when I say this and it irritates you, don't react this way on air because it sounds terrible. And so that dynamic, has changed over the years. But it's really neat. And like I said, it's just a cool blessing for me to be able to do that with him, and secure at least a couple hours a week that in our show is really, it's not, I say it's not a hooks and bullets show where we're not giving you, I have no idea what the ballistics behind a 270R. I don't have any idea what the striped bass are doing on Lake Buchanan, right now. But I can tell you that what our show is more of a topical entertainment show where it's a few guys sitting around the deer camp or sitting at the, lake house, and we're just talking like we'd be talking at the lake house or around the campfire. And a lot of people relate to that, and it makes it a lot easier. We don't have to be experts on anything.
Yeah.
And, but we can be opinionated and we can disagree and, have good conversation. So it's a lot of fun.
People like that. I think people just like that. Just to kind of be a fly on the wall of listening to people that they enjoy listening to.
Right.
It's it's good. I don't know whether you ever knew. Do you know of a show called Car Talk? It was on NPR for years.
Yeah.
It was.
Yes.
If that show started in the 70s, and if it would have been a modern show, it would have started as a podcast, but I mean,
right.
In the 70s, there was no place to go for a specialty kind of discussion like cars or whatever, except for public radio. Right.
Right.
And, the two brothers, Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers, would argue and all this, it was like fantastic. It's one of my favorite shows. I still listen to those old episodes. One of the brothers passed,
right.
so they don't have new episodes. But I'm not even particularly a car person. I just they're just do such a
right.
fantastic show.
Right. Well, and I don't know that we do a fantastic show, but I like having fun, and I think a lot of people, can relate
mm-hmm.
to the conversations we have.
Yeah.
It's because we don't get way up here a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be times that I may research something or whatever, but we're not that super high level. We're just guys that love the outdoors and talk about it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So
I may get a little nerdy when we talk about bass fishing, but that's about it.
I can
may nerd out on that a little
I
bit.
can understand that. That's not surprising. So one of your, I think I have a hunch, one of the jobs that you probably view as most important is you're a father to a little girl.
Yes.
And she, just from your postings on social media, she looks like a little firecracker. Like, she looks amazing.
She is. And it's funny because when I have one daughter, she's 4 years old, and her name's Sailor, and we wanted a name that was related to the water,
mm-hmm.
and Marina was my first choice. My wife didn't like that, so it ended up being Sailor. That was something we could agree on. But she is. She has a lot of energy. Obviously, at 4, mm-hmm. she's actually been sick the last 2 days. She had strep throat, which apparently the parents aren't able to get or whatever. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of friends that said, "Oh man, are you bummed you're not having a boy?" When my wife was pregnant, I said, "No, there's only one thing. I don't have to be responsible for teaching her this or that, on the girly side. All I got to do is love her. And if she wants to be a part of anything I'm doing outdoors, then come on.
Yeah.
She's coming with me." So
absolutely.
that's it.
Well, she'll be a daddy's girl. I'm sure she already is. And she'll be a ton of fun. And we need more women in this sport. So hopefully she likes to fish. I know you take her fishing now, but, as she gets older, hopefully she
Yes.
loves it.
We'll see. It's that weird thing where you're trying to find that balance of what's too much or not enough. And, where do you push them and where do you not push them? So
she'll tell you. I have a feeling she'll be
yeah.
quite vocal about her opinions. If I, not knowing her, I just have a sneaking suspicion.
Yeah, well, you're spot on.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Cody. This was such a fun conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being a part of our show and the conversations we get to have there about PartsVu and just having me on yours.
Yeah,
Love
absolutely. It's so much fun. You can follow Cody on Instagram at Cody Ryan Greaney, or on Facebook, and I'll include the links in the show notes. And he also has a website, CodyGreaneyFishing.com, and that's linked as well. You can also follow the Outdoor Zone on Facebook. And, I know that, for folks not in Texas, you mentioned that you're solely on podcast platforms. Now, are you even still broadcasting on the air on radio or? Yes,
we broadcast live every Sunday from 7 to 9 a.m.
Okay.
And here in Central Texas, 104.9 for those around Austin or Central Texas, San Marcos, any of those places. But they can also listen live online as well.
Okay.
And then to all the podcasts. But all those links are on the theoutdoorzone.com.
Fantastic.
All those links they can find, listen live or any of the previous shows. So
wonderful, and I'll link that in the show notes as well. Both to your website and in the show and all the different the 4 major podcast platforms. So
awesome.
Thanks again, Cody. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Are you in a dock war with your boating neighbor for the cleanest boat? Check out our marine soaps, polishes, waxes, and more at PartsVu.com. And for free shipping, use the coupon code PVTalksShine, a special perk for our podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for boating knowledge, to keep in touch with the PartsVu community, and for special sales and promotions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and check out the show notes for the coupon code just mentioned, more information about PartsVu and the products we offer, as well as our boating blog, the PartsVu Exchange. And a big thanks to Mind for performing the original music featured within this podcast.